Acer sent me this pretty awesome 4K IPS Gsync gaming monitor. Now to take a look at the sort of maneuverability we have here, we have 150mm of height adjust, 35 to -5 degrees of tilt, which is actually not that necessary considering it's IPS, but anyway, in terms of rotation or swivel, you have 30 degrees either side, and you also can turn it 90 degrees to put it in portrait mode if you are ridiculously rich and can afford many of these in a sort of surround sound setup. Now you do have a USB 3 hub both on the back and on the side, and you also have an HDMI port as well as the main display port for G-Sync, so you can pass through something like a console if you want, and obviously the main power in. The buttons themselves are fairly tactile, they're fairly sort of mushy overall, but decent enough, and the menu system can be a little bit complicated and a little bit just sort of annoying to make use of. There's a few better systems out there, but still holds all the settings you would usually expect. The rest of the stand is a fairly thin base, which can be a little bit wobbly, as can the main stand itself, but the back of the monitor is suitably non-glossy besides the Acer logo, which is quite nice, and obviously doesn't lend itself too much to being a massive fingerprint magnet. The panel itself is actually really nice to look at. Obviously being IPS, the viewing angles are fantastic. Color accuracy for me, it was quite good, and there really wasn't much of any backlight bleed that was especially noticeable anyway, especially in a reasonably lit room, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Gaming on this was a really nice experience with a few sort of caveats I'll talk a little bit about later. Specifically being 4K and running at ultra settings, it was a little bit difficult for the GTX 1080 that I'm testing with, so occasionally there were some very visible frame drops even with G-Sync on, but overall it's a very nice monitor to game on and I'm definitely impressed. So there's a couple of things I want to make clear first before we go any further about the monitor, and that is that personally 4K gaming for me isn't the biggest concern or the biggest thing that you would I would recommend that you want. For me, if you're purely just planning on buying a high-end monitor for gaming, the 1440p version of this, the HU, the one that does 165Hz, is personally, again, in my preferences, a better overall experience for you, and obviously having a slightly lower resolution, but still having, something like a GTX 1080, or even with one of those, a GTX 1070, then you're going to have a very nice, very smooth, very pleasurable gaming experience at ultra settings for kind of years to come, whereas with this monitor, you really need a GTX 1080 or a Titan XP to make any sort of real use of it. I'm using GTX 1080 to test it, and luckily obviously it does have G-Sync, which means that it does smooth out those sort of frame drops and that sort of thing, but there are a couple of times where you can see it visibly sort of drop down FPS wise, and it can be a little bit jittery and that sort of thing. So personally, again, personal preference, I would recommend you go for the 1440p version versus this one if you're purely doing gaming. If you are planning on doing some productivity as well, then this one might be a better shout for you. Although another sort of food for thought bit is the LG 4K IPS monitor I reviewed a couple weeks ago. It's actually almost half the price of this one, despite the only differences being that the LG one doesn't have G-Sync and doesn't have as nice a stand. So just a bit of food for thought for you. If you're planning on buying a 4K monitor for gaming, you might want to consider that price difference being almost double for basically a slight smoothing in gameplay. And while I can't deny that G-Sync is a very nice experience and does make the experience better, I don't personally know if I could justify almost double price just for that. So yeah, just a bit of food for thought for you. Speaking specifically about this monitor, I really do like the viewing angles, the overall gaming experience, especially with G-Sync on and a 1080, GTX 1080 powering the experience. It is very nice to look at, very nice to play games on. And overall I'm quite impressed. The menu system can be a bit fiddly, and I wish that they would do something about that just to make it overall easier to use and that sort of thing, but otherwise it's pretty impressive. And yeah, the other thing is obviously with G-Sync there is a little bit of a lack of connectivity, so while there is a HDMI port available for you if you did want to connect a console or something, which by the way, the amount of people asking me if this monitor or similar is good for console gaming, no it's not. I personally even wouldn't put stock in 4K for consoles at the moment. I understand that some of them claim they can do 4K, but I don't think that it's going to be worth your money spending a whole host of cash on a 4K monitor that's the best in the business or something, just to find out that the consoles can't really do 4K, or that you may as well spend your money on a PC if you want that, that sort of thing. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, let's talk about value for money. So first of all, I just want to make it clear that this monitor is actually about £50 less than Acer's PG271HK at the time of filming, which is actually quite impressive and makes it a slightly better value for money, although still very, very expensive. I think I'm going to go for a 3.5 for this one, as it's very highly priced, even compared to its 4K competitors. So yeah, I just want to put that one there. In terms of performance, I'm going to go with a 4.5. In terms of functionality, I'm going to go with a 4. In terms of styling, I'm going to go with a 5 because it's really quite nice to look at. And in terms of TechteamGB score, I'm going to go with a 4. I think in terms of awards, it's kind of the expensive gamer approved award really. It's a sort of, it's a very nice monitor, and if you're desperate to go 4K G-Sync, then this is what I would go for, but I don't necessarily recommend it on the whole at this point in time anyway. So yeah, I guess that kind of rounds that one out. If you've got any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. If you're planning on buying this monitor, please do use the affiliate link in the description down below. And if you're planning on buying anything else, please do use the more general links down there too, as it does help me out and keeps these videos running, keeps me doing, project table and that sort of thing. And yeah, I guess that's kind of it. If you've got any follows, that's the worst. Yeah, if you want to follow us on Facebook and Twitter, then feel free to do that. And yeah, otherwise, thanks for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe, and we'll see you all in the next video. And also, don't forget to check out some of the other videos that I'll leave over here and the subscribe button over there too.